Hello everyone and welcome back to Global Goals. My name is Tom Bradbury and I'm once again joined by Alfie Clark, Josh Horsfield and Charlotte Hindson as we're here to take you through the final group games from Group E and Group F. Here's what we have coming up. With Canada already confirmed to not be moving on in their group, it was very much a fight for pride as they took on Morocco. Elsewhere in Group F, Belgium and Croatia went face-to-face in the bid to secure their spot in their round of 16. It's been an up and down World Cup effort for Japan so far in this year's tournament, but the Blue Samurai were hoping to take Spain to the sword and cause yet another upset in Group E. And finally, Germany have failed to impress in the World Cup under Hansi Flick, but still have had the chance to put on a show in their final game against Costa Rica. It was a 0-0 finish for today's opening game of Croatia against Belgium, and it was also a drama-filled end to Belgium's World Cup campaign. Here's Charlotte with the match reports.
So Belgium came into this tournament ranked second in the world, but have been knocked out early due to a lacklustre performance against Croatia. Substitute Romelu Lukaku had so many chances in the second half and brought energy to his side, but ultimately he just couldn't convert. Croatia weren't really anything special. They had a penalty in the first half, but that was taken back for an offside call in the build-up. Luka Modric went close for Croatia in the second half with a poked effort, but it didn't really come to anything. Lukaku had multiple grade A chances in the closing minutes, putting a deflected cross wide and then was slow to react and hit the ball with his chest and into the goalkeeper's arms from 2 yards out. And there was pretty even possession with a 48 to 52% rate across the game. And ultimately, it has come to an end as Roberto Martinez has left Belgium. The decision was made before the tournament started, but it is now confirmed.
Yeah, and Alfie, have you got any thoughts on how each side played today?
Well, I mean, you know what? I mean, both teams going into it. Belgium obviously the team to really have the pressure on them. I mean, it's been such a disappointing tournament for them. I mean, I think you look at that Canada game that they played first off. I mean, absolutely battered by the Canadians for the majority of that game. Decision making was off. The defense looked sloppy. Way too much space in the midfield, and just nothing went right for them. And again, whilst they did hit Croatia with a lot more in the second half, I thought again, just instantly off the jump, 10 seconds in, Perisic with a great chance to nearly put them in front with which would have been a spectacular goal. And I thought Croatia never played with a lot of the similar neatness and intent that was played with in the last few international tournaments, which is what I really like about their squad. They've got really, really talented players coming forward. I think the fullbacks are decent. Obviously, Perisic, the main man as well, really getting involved in that first half. But yeah, I mean, obviously the main man you got to look at is Romelu Lukaku. I mean, how can you have that many chances put on a plate for you and not just took at least one of them away to even just get 3 points, just to get 3 points on the board, man. Really like an embarrassing performance for him, and it's something that's plagued him throughout the latter stages of career, more especially at his second spell at Chelsea and his time at Man United. So yeah, Josh, mate, what's your thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, again, I mean, a really, really poor tournament from a side ranked second in the world. You'd be expecting a side of their quality with the players they've got to be easily making their way through what you wouldn't say is necessarily a difficult group, really. Croatia is the hardest side, but you see Morocco have proved too much for him. Canada almost proved too much for him. And I think, obviously, many people considered it to be their golden generation. But for me, the man in charge leading this golden generation is not of the quality you'd expect, really. And I think it's not just Martinez's fault. The players have let him down. I mean, De Bruyne coming out publicly in the middle of a World Cup and announcing that he doesn't think his own team can win it can't be great for morale in the dressing room. Morale's not great anyway in that dressing room. Obviously, De Bruyne and Courtois refuse to speak for obvious reasons. Apparently, Trossard and Hazard don't speak at all. Batshuayi and Lukaku there's no communication there either, apparently. So it's just been a dressing room that's sort of been doomed to fail. And then all the public events that have come out and things like that, people saying stuff in interviews, it's just really not helped their cause. And the performances on the pitch have sort of shown that. Disappointing result to Morocco. Probably an even worse performance against Canada, and they were very, very fortunate to come away with anything from that game at all, and probably deservedly exited the tournament today. But yeah, I think it's been a poor tournament, and now obviously Martinez is gone. You got to see where they go from here. But as De Bruyne said himself, it's an aging squad. You look at some of the younger lads coming through. Doku came on today. Di Catale, that's at AC Milan, who I don't think came on today. But do they have the same quality that these aging lads sort of have? And are they going to make that big difference and push Belgium to the next level?
I think you got to look at that back line as well. I mean, you mentioned the Asian squad as well. The main issues are in that back line when it does come to age. I mean, with Vertonghen and Alderweireld, the two players that I want to highlight here, solid. They have been solid centre halves and playing at a very high level in the past. Obviously, both at Spurs for a long period of time. But you look at these two now, like how can you go into a international tournament with two players who I wouldn't, I might be saying this harshly, who never really hit world class status in their careers? How can you go into a tournament with that when they're aging into their mid-30s and expect to not have that sort of intensity coming from your back line? And even then, like you saw a player like Perisic, who again at a similar age is kicking about with all the desire and the energy of a young lad, and I think that's where it's major where the problems lie. So whoever does come in next needs to be looking at any young defenders coming through and finding ways that they can implement them into the squad. Tom, back over to you. What's up next?
Yeah, brilliant. Well, up next is Canada versus Morocco. It was 2-1 in the favour of Morocco as the second game of the day came to a close. Their win against Canada has secured them a spot in the round of 16. Here's Charlotte again with the match report.
So Morocco beat Canada 2-1 and have gone top of Group F, reaching the knockout stages for the first time in 36 years. They will go on to play Spain, which will prove to be a tough test. But with this momentum, I'm sure they can go far. Morocco went ahead with just 4 minutes in after a howler from goalkeeper Milan Borjan, where he sprinted out of his goal, but he did actually pass it to Hakan Ziyech, who finished clinically. They then doubled their advantage through Youssef Ensari, which was a very well taken goal from a superb pass from Hakimi. Stopping defending from Morocco gave Canada a fighting chance as West Ham's Naif Ajay stuck a boot out, which actually diverted the ball into his own net. Abita Hutchinson had a chance for Canada, hitting the crossbar, but it fell onto the line, which pretty much summed up the game for Canada. Morocco are now the second African team to go through, along with Senegal, and this game was the first in the past 6 that they've not actually kept a clean sheet. So,
yeah, Alfie, what are your initial thoughts on the game? You think it was a well-deserved win for Morocco?
Yeah, mate. Honestly, Morocco massive surprises to me and many others. Whilst I haven't watched too much of their tournament so far, I mean, catching this match, for what I saw of it, was a really, really solid performance. They kept it neat, kept it really controlled, and they knew how to attack Canada, because with a team like Canada, I think they're flattered to deceive a bit in this tournament. Obviously, I mean, I thought they played excellent against Belgium. They hit them where it hurt, and I think Belgium sort of played it into their hands a lot. What I noticed about Canada as the tournaments went on and through their group stage games is that they love to be in control. They need to be in the driver's seat for the full 90 minutes, or else it's going to come off the rails completely. I mean, when they're chasing a game and they don't have the freedom to knock it about around the midfield and win it high up, give it to the pacier players up front, like Buchanan, who again has impressed me, but it just hasn't been enough. Jonathan David, Alphonso Davies, these sort of players that we're trying to get the ball to, if they're chasing the game, and they've got a team like Morocco who have some deadly players, like I said, like Charlotte mentioned, and Nesri and Ziyech both can cause damage. When they're getting hit like that to a relatively weak back line, they're going to struggle. And again, Morocco found the ways, and whilst we gifted that first goal, I thought they just kept on trucking, and they didn't let the game get to Canada at all. And I think you've got to respect that. Josh, mate, thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. To be fair, I think Canada this tournament haven't been quite what I expected them to be. I think you've seen in the first game against Belgium, I was really impressed, and then it's just sort of flown off the rails, as Alfie said. They seem to have defensively weak, really. Obviously, the 4 goals shipped against 4. I think it was 4, weren't it, against Morocco? I might be wrong there, but it's just not good enough defensively. And then if they've not got any ideas up front, then they're always going to struggle. Today, I just didn't really see anything from them that I thought looked interesting or looked good at all. You'd expect Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David, some of the best young players in the world right now, I'd say, honestly, to be creating things. But if you can't feed them the ball and Morocco have a smart idea, then defensively, you're going to struggle. Morocco looked good. I thought the 2 goals, admittedly gifted the first one, as Alfie said, as Charlotte said. The second one, just quick ball over the top, races onto it, and it's well finished by El Nesri. But again, they've deserved to win the group purely because they've been a well-drilled side and they've worked hard to grind out the results that they need to grind out, especially in the Belgium game as well. I thought they were really good. And today, again, I thought they showed the quality, really, especially in the final third. And it's led to them qualifying deservedly so. And I mean, it's going to be a tough game against Spain, of course. But as you'll see later on, anybody can beat anybody. And that's what we want to see in a World Cup. And I think these surprising sides are what you need to make a tournament exciting.
Just want to touch back on Ziyech there real quick again. He's been, as a player like Ziyech, he's had a bit of a rocky road down his career recently. Obviously moving from Ajax to Chelsea, he's really struggled down in England. But again, it's one thing that I've noticed over this tournament is that he just loves being the big fish, doesn't he? We're so in that Ajax team, an incredibly talented side that got to the semi-finals of the Champions League back in 2019. But I look at them in this Morocco side, and he just completely bust out of his shell. And there is those sort of players that when they're in these big teams and surrounded by so many big personalities and so much talent, they struggle to thrive because of they have this almost expectation to be the best, like they were at their past club. And I feel like that's something that's plagued Ziyech. And when he's got the shackles let off him in this Morocco side, and he's just allowed to have a bit more freedom. Rather than a more strict system that you see in club football, he really has the freedom to shine. And you know what? I think if you can't do that at club football, it's hard lines, and I think that's something that he needs to get over. But when he can do it at international level and he can make these special moments for his country, I mean, it's absolutely priceless. So I mean, yeah, I think that's all on that game. Tom, mate, let's get a move on. What you got next for?
Yes, mate. So coming up next is Japan against Spain. Japan came out on top against the European giants of Spain. It was perhaps quite a surprising result given the Spanish side's pedigree on the world stage. Japan's win did follow a VAR decision and also, in effect, kicked Germany out of the World Cup. Charlotte, it's over to you.
So, yeah, Japan beat Spain tonight to top Group A and go through to the knockout stages in what could be said is the most dramatic night so far in this World Cup. Japan had only 18% possession rate, but a 2-goal stint within 3 minutes at the start of the second half pushed them to the win. Spain opened the scoring in the first half with a close-range header from Alvaro Morata, and they went into half-time feeling comfortable. Japan substituted Ritsu Doan and Kaoru Mitoma on at half-time, and they made a huge impact from the off. Doan equalised in the 48th minute before Mitoma found Doan's low cross, which stumbled off Ayo Tanaka to beat the goalkeeper from close range. The goal was initially ruled out by assistant referee for the ball going over the line, but VAR ruled that Mitoma had reached it in time. This has proved very controversial through the whole of the evening, and many fans are waiting for FIFA to release more photo evidence. Back to you, Tom.
Yeah, any thoughts from you, Alfie, at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, wow. I mean, again, let's just spare a thought for all the betters, the sweepstakers, the predictors, and just spare them a prayer, because again, no one saw this coming, man. Wow indeed. Another smashing performance from Japan, but I mean, it wasn't as straightforward as it could have been. First half, I mean, Spain dominant. I mean, it's so weird how Xavi and Iniesta, both only retiring a few years ago now, and it just seems like they've almost respawned in the new forms of Gavi and Pedri. And I mean, those two lads are absolutely sensational in the midfield. And I mean, for Sergio Busquets to be playing behind both those two, and also have been playing behind Andres Iniesta and Xavi, it must be a special time for him, man. To see these new two lads just blossom into two new players. But I mean, it really fell apart for them over the second half, didn't it? I mean, Japan came out with a completely new game plan, hit them with some pace, hit them with some pressing, and that really did come, like Charlotte said, when Ritsu Doan and Kaoru Mitoma came on, who again, I mean, this Mitoma fella, I've been gassing him for a while. If you did see the Group E preview, you would have seen that I was gassing this man so much, and he's came good once again. Comes on, hits them with just so much pace, and honestly, down that left side, he's been lethal. And I mean, he's massively important in the attacking from him in the second half, and just, I mean, really, really good decisions from the Japanese manager. And once we went 2-1 up, kept it tight and just allowed Spain to play into their own hands, because we've seen so many times over the years that Spain like to play this neat side to side short passing football, and there's games where they can just keep doing this and passing around teams effortlessly, like we saw against Costa Rica. But against Japan, when the game plan's there and have sussed them out, it doesn't work, evidently. And the way you're going to beat this Spain team is by pressing them and hitting them fast on the counter. That's as simple as. And if going into our perspective, a team like England do come up against Spain later on in the tournament, someone like Calvin Phillips in the midfield is going to be integral to that game. The way he's going to have to press hard and win the ball high up is going to have to be integral. But I mean, enough about England. Josh, mate, what's your thoughts on the game, bud?
Yeah, so I'll just start by saying, as you said, Japan stiffed my bet over within 2 minutes of the second half. My halftime bet, I was like, oh, that Spain first half, gone. It's just a cheeky couple of quid, you know what I mean? 2 minutes, bang, gone. So, yeah, no thank you to Japan. The Japan manager, massive credit to him, because anytime they've seemed to start struggling, he seems to just come up with an idea. And I don't know what he said to him at halftime, what kicked him all up the backside, whatever he did, whatever he changed, seemed to just spring him into life. I mean, it was just brilliant. I mean, the goal, you can talk about controversy, we'll come on to that in a minute, but this Japan side just don't know when to give in, do they? I think we saw it against Germany. Costa Rica, again, the low point, obviously, for them, but you saw it again today. One quick tactical change, the pace up front. Two, I mean, the first goal, great. Maybe Unai Simon could have done better, but I don't know. So it's always difficult for a crowd of bodies to save stuff like that. And then the second one, obviously the controversial one in terms of the fact that did the ball cross the line? I'm not sure why FIFA aren't releasing the image over the top of the ball so we can all see it. And I'm confused, just as confused as maybe some of the German fans are. I mean, obviously it doesn't affect me as much, so hard to say that I really care. But it's one of them, and I mean, in club football, it comes around in swings and roundabouts, and you get decisions like that against you in the season. Maybe not to the extent of that seriousness, but in international football, especially at a World Cup, it's a big decision, and it's one that's put the Germans out. But all credit to Japan, really. I think the pressing, it reminded me of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool in a way, in terms of the way they just never gave up, pressed every single ball, and especially when Spain are passing, you think at half time, you think their energy is going to be sapped, and it just wasn't. They just came out, had that 15-minute break, came out, and they didn't let Spain have a sniff really in that second half. I think Spain might have had 1 or 2 shots on target. But yeah, it just really reminded me of like a Liverpool side in terms of a club level side. And big credit as well. I'd like to give credit to Maeda, who at the start of the tournament, actually, I said the other Celtic lad, Kyogo. But I think Maeda's pressing, he's just gone with what the manager wants them to do, and I think he's the perfect man for the job, really, in that striker role, especially with the pressing style that they play.
I think we've got to have a look at their obviously their round of 16 game now they are coming up, because I mean Croatia. Well, again, it's not the hardest fixture in the world, but these have shown that they can take anyone to the absolute limit, and I mean. It's gonna be tricky. Obviously, I mean Croatia. They are a team that when they expose a weakness in the squad, like Josh mentioned against Morocco, where they scored 4. Not Morocco, sorry, Canada, where they managed to bag 4. When they expose the weaknesses and they find out where they can really hit teams, they'll end up hurting them. We've got the striking talent up front, and just keep it out that back line and just keep playing towards them. They're gonna get goals eventually. So I mean. Yeah, I mean, how do you think? Do you think they can beat them? Do you think we're going to get through, or what are you thinking?
Personally, for me, I really, really can't see what sort of weakness. I mean, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and I just don't see Japan's. They're that good as a team together that I just can't see Croatia getting past them.
There is a real unity. There is a real unity, isn't there? Like just as a squad that just came together, and again, catch them on another game against Costa Rica and they win that game, going through free for free. Yeah, I don't think many people will give them a second chance against Croatia. So yeah, I mean, time will tell, but I think that could be a really, really tasty game. So keep your eyes on that one. Tom, mate, let's head back on to the final game. What you got for pal?
Brilliant, mate. Well, up next and finally, it is Costa Rica against Germany. It was a dominant 4-2 win for Germany to round off their World Cup appearance. It's been quite a difficult ride for the German team during this year's World Cup. Charlotte, we'll come to you first just for the match report.
Yeah, so Germany are out of the World Cup on goal difference after Japan beat Spain tonight. They looked in control through Gnabry's 10th minute header before Costa Rica completely turned the game on its head. Yeltsin Tejeda equalised for Costa Rica after keeper Manuel Neuer pushed out Kendall Watson's header in the 58th minute and he capitalised. 12 minutes later, they took the lead through Pablo Vargas before Kai Havertz ended the hopes of the Costa Ricans with 2 clinical finishes. Then substitute Nicholas Füllkrug added a last-minute 4th to confirm the victory for the Germans. Obviously, the result wasn't enough for the Germans as they crash out of the World Cup for the second group for the second time in a group stage. It's the same as 4 years ago in Russia.
Yeah, definitely a shame to see Germany kicked out of this year's World Cup, although their performance hasn't quite lived up to what we probably expected. Alfie, what are your thoughts on, of course, Germany leaving the World Cup and their match today?
Yeah, well, I mean, in the form of an England fan, I'm more than happy to see a relative favourite pop off early. So I mean, good riddance if you fancy seeing that. But yeah, I mean, talk about leaving it way too little and way too late for these. How are you going to have all this in the locker and not be able to show it as a team so much throughout the tournament. I mean, I just want to highlight Jamal Musiala for one. He's been, over these past 3 games, he's been a shining light, to be quite honest. He's balling at a different level for these, a sort of club level at Bayern. And, when you're playing behind a striker as, unreliable as Kai Havertz, who, again, he's sort of like a jack of all trades, master of none. He doesn't really know where his best position is. When you're playing behind someone like that, I feel like Musiala almost has this idea in his head. He's like, right, I've got to do something myself here. And again, with Sorvis, so unlucky not to get on the score sheet, man. Hitting the post twice from what would have been 2 brilliant finishes. Obviously, one from range, one from a tight angle. Where I heard the commentator saying, he's got to play it across the full crug. You can't blame him for shooting there at all. He's got 4 posts open to him. I think attacker's instinct. I cannot blame the lad for shooting at all. Again, like I mentioned, he's got this idea that I feel like he's got this idea that he's got to do something himself. So as a young lad, honestly, I've got to give him the full credit. But Germany, man, it's obviously growing pains for Hansi Flick, coming in first tournament, a real baptism of fire for this bloke. So there's obviously rough edges to sort out, what is his best team? How does he implement his style and a system into this Germany side that he was doing so well in the Bundesliga? And, obviously that'll come with time, but yeah, man, just clumsy at the back. Not enough. I wouldn't say enough going forward. I think, when you look at Füllkrug coming off the bench, when he's coming off the bench twice now, and getting goals. I don't know why he wasn't starting up front in the first place. And actually an out-and-out 9 who has been impressing in the Bundesliga for the past few months, yet Havertz is getting in over him. He's playing around players in the same league as him. For sort of almost they'll know how he works. So it's a confusing one for me. But yeah, better luck next time, I guess. Josh, mate, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with the Füllkrug thing. I think he should have been starting. Germany have always struggled with out-and-out 9s, obviously since Miroslav Klose retired. I don't think Muller can do that role. I don't think Muller can play on the wing. I think Muller has to play Musiala's role, but I think Musiala's the better player now. And as you say, Musiala's creativity, he's almost single-handedly willing Germany through games. But it's just not enough when the lack of quality. Kai Havertz scored twice today, but he just doesn't seem to. It's the other games where they've been let down in terms of the quality. And I can't say I'm not disappointed to see Germany go, really. And as an England fan, I think they were one of the favourites for the tournament heading into it, but I just don't think things have gelled for them. Obviously, we've seen 2 favourites go out on the same day, in Belgium as well. And I think it bodes well for the smaller sides, such as Japan, who have shown that they can cause an upset and go further in the tournament. I think a big controversy, obviously, for Germany will be Japan's goal against Spain. But you shouldn't have to rely on another team's goal or wrongdoing to get you through a tournament. You need to put yourself in the position, especially as a big side. You need to put yourself in a position where you've got the best chance of qualifying, and they've just not got the results in the games. Füllkrug, every time I've seen him come on, seems to make an impact, and I just can't understand why they wouldn't start him in the first place. I'm not too sure what Flick's thought process behind that was. But as I say, I think pretty good. I'm pretty happy that they've gone, really. But just, at one point with Costa Rica, I don't think we've really spoke on Costa Rica. I don't think they had the best World Cup. Obviously, they win against Japan, and at times they almost qualified through with Japan, obviously, when they went 2-1 up. And I think they're a country with passion, but the quality is just not there, really, in terms of the players. But they've come to the World Cup. They've tried to put on a show. They've scored 3 goals. The result against Spain, when we saw that Spain result, obviously you just think Spain are going to cruise. And as we've seen, they've not done that today. But I think Costa Rica have made no fools of themselves, really, and they've got some quality young players coming through. Jurison Bennett, I think is a good player, and I think they've not done themselves any harm, really. Just a disappointing result today.
You're so right when you say that, mate. When I look at both teams, the one similarity that I want to pick out is that they both really looked like their own biggest problem, and I think that obviously came from the defense. I mean, with Costa Rica, obviously, you're looking at a weaker backline, and obviously when they went ahead, I compare it to when Japan went ahead. Japan kept it tight. They had an idea, and even when they were getting the ball clear, they were trying to hit speed on a break, just leaving the odd player up. And I was seeing like Matoma nearly broke and got a third for them. But Costa Rica, they never really had an idea on how to actually keep the lead, or maybe even extend it past the point of no return for Germany. It was 11 men behind the ball, lump it out, rinse and repeat. And it was clumsy towards the end almost. They didn't really have it again. They didn't really have too much of a game plan. Once we went ahead, it was like 2-1 up. It was like, what do we do now? We never got this far. So yeah, that again, like I said, with the lack of defensive quality, I think it's almost a given, to be fair. But at the same time, Germany as well, I think, look really clumsy at times. Again, Fuller broke when they were still 1-0 down, and mistakes from both Raum and Rudiger sent him through. And it seems like there was just no communication. Like just put a name on it. Like in those situations, that you just got to put a name on it to commit to it. Just lump it out. Stop trying to play fancy. And even for the goals as well. I mean, Neuer with a parry. I mean, you can maybe argue that he couldn't have done much better. But if he's going to catch the ball, you argue he's got to do it better. If he's trying to just palm it away and just push it off to the side, fair dues. But if he's going for the catch, you'd expect him to catch it, especially with a keeper of Neuer's pedigree. And then for the second again, just like it seemed no one could get that napper on it. And yeah, it just leads to a massive goalmouth scramble and a clumsy goal in the end. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously going to be disappointing going out in the group stages, but for Costa Rica fans, I don't think they could have expected much more. But yeah, I mean, obviously Josh picked up on Japan's seemingly weird goal line decision. Tom, mate, hit with the all important question. I mean, was it really a goal or not?
Come again, Alfie, mate. You broke up there.
I think what he was saying was obviously Germany have been sent out by that VAR decision in the Japan-Spain game, and I just think he wants to get everybody else's thoughts on that. As I briefly spoke about why FIFA's not sort of shown the images from our angle and everybody else's angle. Obviously, they're saying on ITV that you can see that it looks like the whole ball's gone out, but then you look, it's the base of the ball has gone out, but the curvature of the ball sort of, you can almost just see it, that it's kept it in, which is why you need FIFA to come in and release this image. But I just wanted to get everybody else's thoughts on that, really. Do we think the ball went out, or do we think the ball stayed in?
Well, I think we need to have a look at the images first of all. It's all well and good saying this or that based on what you see on TV, but I think we can only really get a real answer when FIFA actually come out and publish the pictures. But yeah, it really is one of them. And talking about VAR, I think that debate kind of opens up a whole other can of worms. It's not great when you see a match being determined by that. It does take away a lot of the excitement, but who knows? I guess the results of that will follow.
I mean, GDS, to be fair, for most of the time, it's been normally spot on in most times. I mean, the only reason obviously, there was the obvious Lampard goal back in 2010, but obviously it was before goal line technology was even implemented. But I mean, the only real time that I remember GDS failing was back in 2020 when Sheffield United were wrongly disallowed a goal against Aston Villa, which ultimately kept Aston Villa up. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna obviously back GDS on this one. I mean, it's been right about literally 99.9% of the time, and compared to VAR, when whilst they have moved to a more automated and machine-based decision making compared to machines and human error taking stage. There's really no excuse for it anymore if it's completely going down to these tiny lines of code that are being put in place to make sure that this game is as fair as possible. Which, I mean, you can have your stance on that, but if it's what FIFA and what football is going to be. It's what it's going to be. I mean, there's not much we can change about that. I mean, Charlotte, do you want to give us your thoughts as well on VAR as a whole?
As a whole, I think it is needed, just to back up the referee. Also, talking about referees, bit of a sidetrack, but today was the first time a woman refereed in the Men's World Cup game in the Germany and Costa Rica game, which I thought was, obviously as a woman, a massive stance. And it really just showed that women are coming into the game, not just as players, but as referees. Josh, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant as well, especially in a World Cup that's had a lot of controversy in a country that maybe has, we won't go into too much detail, but maybe has some issues with women's rights and things like that. But I think it's great to see that female referees can operate just as well as male referees, and that there should be a level of equality there in terms of the split. And I think in terms of it's going to bring more female referees and officials into the game. We're starting to see it in leagues across England as well, in leagues across other countries. And I think it's really good to see. And hopefully soon we'll start to build up the numbers of female referees and we can start to have an even more sort of even balance. And I mean, look at the controversy of other games and referees getting slagged off and things like that. She's done nothing wrong today at all. So there you go. I think it's a great thing.
I mean, if we're just dropping fact bombs, one last one before we get on to tomorrow's action. Just want to hit you with a little fact from the Spain game. So obviously, I mentioned the tiki-taka football, and Rodri is taking that right into his own hands. According to SofaScore, he completed 204 passes versus Japan, which since SofaScore has been going, it's the first time ever in their database that a player has recorded over 200 passes in a match. And I mean, it's that number is mind blowing to me. I mean, there's no argument that this bloke is one of the best holding mids and just midfielders in general in the world at the moment. And I mean, that blows my mind. But yeah, just a quick one there for you. Tom, what's coming up tomorrow in the world of the World Cup?
Spot on, mate. So tomorrow's action sees South Korea face Portugal and Ghana facing Uruguay. Those two games kick off at 3 p.m. Tomorrow evening, Serbia face Switzerland and Cameroon are also facing Brazil. Any predictions, guys, from how they're going to go?
It's definitely going to be an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, both Ghana and Uruguay, they're going to have to fight big time. Uruguay, especially, another disappointing side who we could see the back end of. Again, it's going to be interesting because I think a lot of people are thinking Portugal are going to be the weaker team out of the two, especially between them and between them and Uruguay. And I mean, Portugal firmly in the driver's seat now, and it's going to be up to Uruguay to battle against Ghana. If you're pushing us for a result, honestly, I might just have to edge at Ghana. I mean, Abubakar coming on in the last few minutes against in their last game seriously impressed me. But it's going to be an interesting day of football, especially with Uruguay being in their position. Josh, mate, any predictions?
Yeah, I think obviously Ghana and Uruguay have got a bit of history, so I think for me that might inspire the Africans and they could go on and beat Uruguay. For me, Portugal are going to beat Korea. I think Ronaldo's obviously didn't get his goal last week, but yeah, I think for me, Portugal are going to beat Korea. Brazil probably be too strong for Cameroon as well, even without Neymar. And Serbia-Switzerland, I'd probably say is the most interesting game of the day, really. For me, I think Switzerland might just have a bit too much for Serbia. So back to you, Tom.
Brilliant. Well, that's all from us here at Global Goals. Thank you so much for tuning in on today's recap. Until next time, take care.